Hey, I am so excited and grateful for the opportunity to share with you my passion for my newest book, Know What You Don't Know. After writing Chasing Mission Fit, I really received such a warm reception of that book. And it was really like, hey, this is really what we need. This is something that we really think it will make a big difference. We are going to pivot our marketing to kind of go after those mission fit students, which has been wonderful. And I'm very grateful for that. But one thing I realized is that as I started seeing that happen, a lot of the leaders were leaning into that, but not asking the questions about what they needed to do to make that happen. They were not asking the right questions. And so I realized that a lot of senior leaders, because they are so much experts in other things, didn't have a working literacy of marketing. So they didn't know the right questions to ask when they were talking about building a digital advertising campaign, or didn't know the questions to ask about, putting together a website, or how they might need to assess a program, whether to bring it on or sunset it. And so what I did is I really wanted to create a new book, really focused on what every higher ed leader needs to know about marketing. And so I put together this book to just kind of go through to help explain in common language and easy language, what are the main questions you need to be asking? And so that's why I wrote this book. That's why I'm passionate about this. That's why I'm passionate about, getting resources out there for leaders, especially leaders of small schools and schools that might not have the resources or the teams that larger institutions might have. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to make good decisions and make good investments and steward your resources well. So really looking forward to sharing this with you now.
You're listening to The Higher Ed Marketer, the podcast for marketing professionals in higher education. Join us every week as we talk to the industry's greatest minds in student recruitment, donor relations, marketing trends, new technologies, and much more. If you're looking for conversations centered around where marketing in higher ed is going, this podcast is for you. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast. I'm Troy Singer along with my friend and co-host Bart Kaler, and today Bart and I talked to Kristen Eaton, who is the Interim Vice President of External Relations at the University of Maine at Augusta. Kristen brings a unique perspective to higher education, shaped by more than a decade in nonprofit fundraising and donor engagement. Since joining UMA, she has been helping the institution rethink how it shows up, strategically aligning marketing, alumni relations, advancement, and storytelling to create a more emotionally resonant and relationship-driven experience for both prospective students and supporters.
Yeah, this has been such a great conversation. I really enjoyed Kristen's authenticity, her humility of kind of just coming into the conversation and sharing what she's been learning over the last 6 months of being there at UMA. So really excited to share this with everyone.
Bart, I think she brings a wonderful wealth of knowledge from her professional experience, but being new at an institution, she is very excited and that energy exudes, or you can feel it during this conversation.
That's right. Well, let's listen to it now. Let's go.
Here's our conversation with Kristen Eaton. Kristen, Bart and I think it's fun to put a spotlight on our guests at the very beginning by asking them sort of a different question, and that is, please share something interesting or maybe surprising that you've learned recently that our audience would find meaningful or even fun.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm fairly new to higher ed, and what I've been increasingly surprised by every day when I come to work is how creative and impactful higher ed is, and how reluctant we are to sometimes talk about that. Yeah. So I've been finding myself in my office at the University of Maine at Augusta saying, we have so many great stories we can tell. Why are we not telling them?
Amen.
And every day I feel like it surprises me all over again. I'm sure there are other people who sit in a seat similar to mine and feel that way too, but that was surprising to me. Feeling like people must be all over these stories all the time, but they're really not. So I'm excited to take that challenge, but it's something that's been surprising to me.
That's great.
Thank you, Kristen. And that is the reason why we wanted to have you on the podcast. As you said, you recently into higher ed from nonprofit fundraising. So you come from a strong nonprofit communications and development background. What parallels or differences have you observed since stepping into higher ed?
Oh, that is a great question. And to my surprise, there's a lot of parallels. One of the big things I think of or have noticed in my less than 1 year here so far is that it's all sort of built on a belief system, that higher ed is built on belief and trustworthiness before action. And it's the same way in fundraising. Most donors are never going to give to the first time they see a communication or a fundraising appeal from your institution. It's just not the way it works. It's like speed dating, right? Most people don't get married after the first 20 minutes of a conversation. And it's very similar to in higher ed. You have to sort of build this process that allows people to see themselves in the work that you do and in your mission, and you have to build that belief, and it's a process to go through and do that. Most likely you're not going to get a student off a cold email the first time you send out an email. So that's something that I've been noticing that is very similar. The other thing I would say that I noticed is that there seems to be, in the same vein, like long decision cycles, if you will. Like, it's very emotional. Like for a donor, it's something that you have to believe in to part with your money. And in some cases, depending on what you're fundraising for, the donor might never see the benefit of what they're giving to, but they're giving for this good feeling that they know they're supporting something that meant something to them. But for higher ed, you get to believe in yourself or your family member or your community member or the neighbor down the street. And I just think that that's really, really interesting and a very clear parallel between building that long-term cycle and building that trust and seeing how you can make a difference. And for higher ed, it's the difference you see in yourself and versus what you do for somebody else.
That's great. What do you think is one of the biggest differences that you've found going from nonprofit to higher ed? Because a lot of people say, oh yeah, it's similar, and you just described a couple of those, but there are differences.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I guess I'll start with an easy difference first. Like we kind of just touched on. The belief system is different, right? Like you're giving when you're giving for a nonprofit, it's like you're giving for something your hopes and dreams, like you believe in this process, this mission. But for higher ed, you're really giving for a belief in yourself and like an impact you can have on your own life. So I think that is a difference. While it is, the belief process is similar, like I described before, but the way in which that happens is very different. I think the other thing that is very different are the number of stakeholders in higher ed. It seems that the amount of ways in which you can reach a particular target audience, and there are many in higher ed, is very different than in nonprofit fundraising. There's only so many people who can possibly care about what you are fundraising for. But in higher ed, it's a little different. Like the target audiences are large, and there's, even within a single audience, there's multiple ways you can reach them. Like a prospective student can be reached in 36 different ways. And it's a matter of trying to figure out how you build those all those different possible stakeholders, build those relationships, manage those messages, and bring them through a funnel, and hopefully eventually get them to want to be a student.
Well, if you think about it too, I mean, even just the prospective student, the example you gave, is it a prospective dual enrollment student? Is it a prospective undergrad traditional student? Is it a prospective transfer? Is it a prospective adult, graduate? Yeah, exactly. They're all different.
It blows my mind sometimes. And it's like, even when I think for UMA in particular, we're really focused on non-traditional workforce workforce development degrees. And I find that super exciting, but it's also really hard because where any potential non-traditional student could be at any point in their journey is very different than a traditional age student who you kind of know is just coming out of high school, going to be coming out of high school sometime soon, or has just graduated, which kind of limits the frame in which you're going to be able to reach them. For non-traditional students, it's anywhere and everywhere in any line of business that they could potentially see the opportunity to invest in themselves and upskill and look at reinvesting in their own futures. And
even there, you said any line of business, that there could be from the trades to healthcare to business. There's a ton of different, even just the type of people that go into those different careers, the way they prefer to consume media, the way that they prefer to consume, it's all different and it's hard.
It's all different and hard. And that's a big difference, huge difference. Honestly, it's the scale and scope of the audience is just on a different level.
Yeah. I know that too, when you kind of work on nonprofits sometimes, especially when you're doing those donor appeals and you've got the marketing, there's a lot of emotional and belonging that's part of just a natural part of nonprofit marketing and communications. What do you think colleges and universities, or maybe what have you borrowed from that you think that they could learn from that approach, and especially in terms of messaging and relationship building for those prospective students or even for donors within higher ed?
I think it really comes down to the storytelling piece. I always told myself when I was working in nonprofit fundraising, people had to see the impact, right? Like they had to believe and see the impact. It wasn't about like all the credentials that you could possibly put behind a nonprofit, or it's about the real person who took the step, made the decision, went through the process, graduated, and what they've now done with their life. I think that that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from nonprofit storytelling and impact storytelling is that, and this transcends both enrollment marketing and alumni relations and how we would talk to potential donors. They want to see like they're giving to invest in these students who have chosen to invest in themselves. And the stories resonate across all sectors of our communications. And I think that is really the biggest thing. It feels, make it human, even though the human story might not always be the most polished and the most perfect and the most ideal, right? Like, but when people can kind of see themselves in someone else's situation, in someone else's outcome, that is where I think the most power lies, especially for a place like UMA, where it's about taking a step to invest in yourself and learn something new or advance in something, or, take that associate's degree you got at a Maine community college and invest and take the next step. Go get that bachelor's degree, go get that hands-on learning.
Yeah, I love the storytelling. I mean, I've heard a lot of people on LinkedIn and even some other places that is the skill that's going to be needed going forward. I mean, whatever we're doing in marketing, if you can be a good storyteller, if you can lean into that, that's going to be a skill that we all need to do and lean into more. That's really good.
Kristen, a common conversation that I often hear in higher ed is the desire or maybe the need of busting down silos between marketing, advancement, and alumni relations. And one of the key themes that you've emphasized at UMA is breaking down silos, and would love to know your thoughts and approach on how to get this done both practically and relationally.
That is a fantastic question. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure I've figured out the perfect model, but I'll tell you what I've found has worked so far. So practically speaking, I think a little bit of it is what we've kind of talked about already. It's like trying to get people to see that the value is in the personal experience, in the story, and it kind of letting them see that it translates across all sectors. Again, what a donor wants to hear is, or a scholarship funder wants to hear, is that the student they gave to has been positively impacted by that gift, right? So that's a fantastic story. That story also translates to the potential student who's looking at a program. Let's pick on dental hygiene, because that's the one that's coming to my mind right now. Wow, look at this student who got this amazing scholarship, and look at how UMA is helping them get through this very rigorous program and prepare them to take exams and get into the workforce. And then it also resonates at the wide end of the funnel, right? Like, this is a student who took a step and look at how they're succeeding. So, I mean, I think practically that is one thing that I've been trying to do. Help everybody see that the stories can resonate across the different audiences, even though one section might be focused on the donor, one might be focused on the alumni, and one might be focused on enrollment and finding prospective students. It all kind of resonates across. If you put a big umbrella over the top of it, it can all work if you build the stories appropriately. Here's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to stop talking and listen.
That's good.
And I don't know if it's working 100% yet, but I don't know what I approach this. I say this every day. Like, I don't know what I don't know about higher ed and my institution in particular. And I find that I'm building a lot of trust by slowing down and saying, what do you need? Like, I think I know what you might need, but I don't really, like, I need you to tell me. People get nervous, like, especially when a new leader starts, they're like, oh, you're just going to come in here and think you know exactly how we do what we do. And let me just tell you, you don't know. And this could happen anywhere. And I've been very keen to not want to come across that way. And of course, like, I admit openly, I don't know what I don't know. And I want to do right by the institution. So I've been trying to listen, and I think that that's helping break down those silos a little bit. I've also been trying to get more people in the room together. I don't know if this happens at other institutions, but like the alumni office and the marketing office are right next to each other at UMA, like literally in the same building, and they have no idea what each other is doing. Yeah. And I just find that shocking. So just more like setting up systems basically so we can work cross-functionally more effectively. And that's been working so far, I think.
That's great. I think that humility is a big key. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable about that, because I think that that's where a lot of people, they feel like they need to prove themselves and they come across a little bit in the wrong light. I mean, I think it's always better for us to kind of admit where we are and listen and be patient and do those things. And so I really like what you shared there. But I'm sure that as you've looked at it, and we talked a little bit before we got started just on some of the challenges, but why do you think everything is so disconnected sometimes in higher ed? I mean, like you just illustrated, it's like you got alumni next door, you got marketing right here. I mean, I've seen the same thing. It's like you got marketing over here, you got enrollment over here. It's like we're on different planets, and I'm just trying to figure out, why do you think that is, and what do you think's the risk if we don't try to bridge those? I mean, a lot of people are okay with, well, that's just the way it is, Bart. We'll just deal with it. I mean, I don't think we're in a place we can do that.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like, I guess I will preface my answer to this question by saying I found that my nonprofit experience the teams were much smaller. Yeah. And because of that, integration was more natural, even if it literally just happened over the water cooler pre-COVID. Yeah. You were just more connected to what your coworkers and colleagues were doing. Here's what I think. Each of these departments or teams or advancement, alumni relations, marketing, communications, all function on different timelines. They function using different metrics. They function defining success differently. Like, so for advancement, it's like, did I get the big donor? And for enrollment and marketing and communications, it's like, well, did our message resonate, right? Did we reach the broadest number of people we possibly could? And I think that is a problem, right? Like, so everyone is sort of focused on their own outcomes and their own measurables and their own deliverables. And that is something that is a problem. I think that can sort of naturally just pull people in different directions. And everyone's day looks very different because of that. I think the risk is a big kind of mess, for lack of a better way to say it. Because think about it from a prospective student's viewpoint. Our goal would be to bring a prospective student from knowing nothing about the university to being interested, to inquiring, to enrolling, to graduating, to becoming an alum, to eventually becoming a donor. And shouldn't that story arc and that relationship be seamless from start to finish?
Amen. Yep, it should be.
Maybe I'm not like, I don't know, really. I'm just telling you 8 months in what I think I understand from this, but like, it feels like sometimes everyone, even like admissions and enrollment, and like no one's sort of beating the same drum. And it's like, well, what does that feel like to the poor person who's trying to understand if they fit at UMA or not?
I love that. I did a blog post several years ago about, I counted up how many different places a student could be over the life cycle, and it was like 47. From a prospect and a suspect to inquiry to an app, you keep going down, and then you do like, hey, I'm an alumni, I'm a donor, I'm a major donor, I'm a board member, I'm a lifetime, I give my estate. There's a lot of opportunities, and I think that when we are disconnected and we're not on the same page, and everybody's trying to do their own thing, and they don't look up from the trenches, it makes it really difficult. And it makes it difficult for our end users, our people that we're serving.
Yes, you said it very well. I couldn't agree more. I feel like that is the biggest opportunity. And honestly, I think that's what UMA has seen in the potential in my role, that I can hopefully attempt to try to bring it together in a way that feels authentic and true and thoughtful at each stage. I'm not sure. I don't know when we'll get to 47 steps in the stage, but even if we just get like the main milestones right, I would think that would be a moment of success and celebration that we could maybe step back and say, okay, we're headed in the right direction.
That's great. Yep.
Kristen, before we leave the topic of silos, is there any advice, maybe specific or additional advice, that you could give leaders at other institutions that want to start working more cross-functionally?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think my advice is to start small. Find one collaborative program or process or campaign that you could work on together, and kind of think about breaking it all down and then building it back up. I find that my team really loves when I explain my thought process behind things, like, because they're kind of learning a new way to approach the work too, right? Like, we're really trying to do this work in real time. And I find that that's helpful when I can kind of break it down and then talk through like how we might build it back up together. This year, or this academic year, is UMA's 60th anniversary. So I started in April, and this was well underway. Obviously, we'd been thinking about the fact that our 60th anniversary was kicking off in September. And I kind of took a step back when I started, mostly for education purposes. But what ended up happening was it was an opportunity for us to say, the 60th anniversary is a perfect sort of mini campaign that we can think about how this affects potential students, current students, alumni, donors. Like, how can we start building something that could hit all of these sectors in a way that will help advance the goals of the institution? And I think what we ended up doing was building a video with a multi-phased video. The first phase was a call to action to alumni. Like, hey, it's our 60th anniversary. We would love to hear your story. Like, we're really trying to build these story banks. Like, that's another little project we're working on. But like, so marketing and communications originally have been thinking about, well, like, how are we just telling the world it's our 60th anniversary? When we took a step back, we were like, no, maybe the first part of this should be invite the people that have been with us for 60 years to start like engaging. Come back, tell us your story. And we got some great inquiries and great leads on some really great alumni stories. And so that started building our story bank a little bit. And then as we're about to start the new semester, we'll shift a little bit. And now it's an opportunity for us to start talking about like where we see UMA in the future, like what's coming down the pipeline. What does this mean for you, prospective student, or how can you see yourselves in this work? And again, just trying to show that not every communication is only enrollment focused too. So that's, again, but that was just a small, like, an anniversary is a big thing. UMA is a smaller institution, but that was one project that we tried to sort of think through in a way that was a little different than how we'd been doing it in the past.
Love that. That's excellent.
Kristen, we would like to tee up our last topic with you, which should be one that make you smile and maybe a little bit easy. Marketing with humanity and making UMA's story feel real. You have mentioned that higher ed often falls back on safe imagery and familiar language. And so from your perspective, especially coming from the nonprofit world, what have you observed and how do you think we can push forward more resonant, real storytelling?
I think we need to not be afraid of how real we are. I want to see like the real student in their real outfit, really walking to class, really sitting in a lecture, really cleaning teeth or going to the vet tech program or learning cybersecurity. I want to see like the realness of it. And I think what I don't like when I see, I'll just pick on UMA because I can. What I don't like is stock imagery or things that just feel like it could be anywhere. Like, show me the real UMA. Again, the snow might be dirty in the background, or the student might have a t-shirt on that you might not love, or like whatever, but like show me the real authentic experience that is UMA. And I feel like that's all you can do to differentiate yourself sometimes, right? Like this is a side note, take it or leave it, but when I first started, I used to see all of these ads. The algorithm picked up my Google searching. So I was getting all these higher ed ads served in my social media. I bet I saw half a dozen social media ads that were telling me that universities and colleges were transfer friendly. We're transfer friendly. We're great. Great. What the heck does that mean? And then I realized we were doing the same thing. Like UMA was doing the exact same thing. And when you take a step back and say, like, well, what does that mean exactly at UMA? Like, we have one-on-one support. We'll look at your transcript with you. Like, real people are here to help you figure out if this is the best next step for you. Tell me that story. Yeah. Don't splash. We're transfer friendly. Well, I don't really know what to do with that. So sometimes I play devil's advocate a little bit, and that's like a perfect example, though, to me, of like feeling safe. And I mean, I guess the only other observation I have here around this is sometimes I feel like we're trying to appease too many people, and because there's a lot of stakeholders and a lot of opinions and a lot of feeling about the way we talk as a university. And I agree. I know there are many great reasons why that needs to be in place, but sometimes I think it can water down a message because you're trying to be too much to too many people. Maybe not specifically in the transfer friendly example, but I've noticed that there can sometimes be a little bit of a tension between like maybe how marketing wants to emotionally resonate or feels like we should take a message, and how the rest of the institution feels like it should be represented. So sometimes there's a little line to walk, and some advocating that needs to happen on why you might want to tell a story a specific way.
Right. And I love the fact that you just brought up advocating, because I think our roles as marketers sometimes is to help advocate and persuade what we know is the best way going forward, as opposed to just being order takers that just say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, I'll just get it done. I'll take your change and make that real quick. Because I think the problem is a lot of times, and you talked about know what you don't know. I've actually got a new book coming out, Know What You Don't Know, for higher ed leaders. So, because I find a lot of leaders in the C-suite make decisions without understanding anything, and they don't ask questions of the marketers. They don't ask questions of the team to get the best results. They sometimes just make their own opinion. And, a 50, 60, 70-year-old executive isn't our target audience for an undergrad transfer. It's not our target audience for a 17-year-old. And so while we might be wanting to really show some authenticity, and maybe it feels like an iPhone took it, because you know what? An iPhone did take that photo and we're going to use it. They are freaking out because it's like, well, where's the photography bill? Why didn't we bring in the videography crew? When I was in that seat, I used to bring in the local TV station to do that. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. We don't need to do that. And I think sometimes we have to advocate as leaders in marketing to be able to say, let me explain why we're doing this. Let me show you some data backing this up. You need to trust us and let us do our job. I think too many times leaders, they shirk that duty when they need to be lifting it up.
I couldn't agree more, and now I cannot wait to read your book. I think, yes, that's exactly right. I mean, I don't know. That's what I've been experiencing for sure. I feel like what I value is that UMA has identified this as an issue, I think, and put this position, the position I'm in currently, at the leadership level, at the table, to understand how how decisions are being made and communication and marketing impacts to those decisions. And I think that that's important. Again, I'm still fairly new in the role, but I can see the potential of how it hopefully will all come together. But yeah, it's tough sometimes when you're out there trying to advocate for what you just know it's the right thing to do, and the cybersecurity faculty doesn't want to say it that way. So trying to convince change in an appropriate way and in a way that doesn't feel like you're coming in heavy-handed.
Yeah, I read a book over Christmas called If and Thinking. I think that's what it was. And anyway, it's the idea of, rather than looking at everything as an opposite, like, well, if we do that, we can't do this. How can we do both? Because sometimes that's what happens with, like you gave the demonstration of the cybersecurity faculty come. They want to do something. You need to do something. They might look different. They might look opposite. So how can you cross that bridge to satisfy everybody and get both? And it's both and thinking is what it is. How can you do both and really make it better than it could be either by itself? And I think that takes skill as a marketing leader to be able to do that. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm definitely still figuring that out. Like, what is the right amount of pressure? What is the right amount of education? When is it appropriate for me to say this isn't the one that I need to die on the hill for?
Exactly.
And I think it's an interesting complexity to every single day. I'll say it that way.
Love that. That's good stuff.
Kristen, this is going to be our last interview question for you, and it's meant to elicit a specific piece of advice. So if someone listening wants to start applying nonprofit style storytelling and relationship building to their higher ed marketing work, what's one first step that you would recommend them take?
A very specific step. I did a department audit, and I met with all the leaders. Well, it was also a great way for me to get to meet everybody too. Right. Like the program coordinators, the deans, the leadership across the university, and the people who were running the programs. And I asked them, like, for an hour, I just asked one question. I was like, how do we show up for you now? And how do you wish we were showing up instead? And what I got was a lot of the same kind of answer. It was, you're too slow. You don't get back to my requests quick enough. My program needs to be marketed more. That's what everyone said. And I was like, recurring themes happening here. What I realized is that it's a system problem, right? Like we don't have the right systems in place in the marketing and communications area in particular, in this case, to support the university, which every person who works at the university is our client, right? And there would be no marketing agency that would have 6 people employed in it and have like 300 clients, right? Like that just would never happen. So how do we build the systems that allow us to start repairing this reputational issue we have here, that we're not responding and we're not quick enough and we're not offering enough insight? Now, in terms of the storytelling piece, which I think is what you asked specifically, I think it's about building those relationships that allow us to dig a little deeper with the faculty. In particular, I find it with faculty in most cases, like I need to know the head of the nursing department. She needs to be on my speed dial, because when I need to connect with something real that's happening in the nursing department, I need to know that she's going to be on my team. Right. And that's and understand my vision of what we're trying to bring to life. So that's the easiest thing I can tell you to do. Make friends, and start delivering on what it is that they're saying they want.
Everyone, we've been talking to Kristen Eaton, Interim Vice President of External Relations for the University of Maine at Augusta. And Kristen, for those who would like to continue the conversation with you or at least be connected to you, what would be the best way for them to do so?
I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. Also, my contact information is on the University of Maine at Augusta website, so you can email me, call me. All my information is posted there as well. I would be happy to talk to anyone, and I would also love to hear other people's perspectives on this. I like I said, lots of nonprofit and fundraising and marketing communications in that realm, but I'm definitely still learning higher ed, so I'm excited for the opportunity to talk a little bit about this and to learn more.
Bart and I have this vehicle to promote networking and information exchange. And thank you for all that you've done for us today.
Well, I hope it was okay. Yes, you're welcome.
Great. It's wonderful.
Oh, good.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Bart.
Very, very good.
Bart.
Yeah, I think that this has been a wonderful conversation. I love Kristen's vulnerability and just the honesty of kind of saying, hey, this is where I've been, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm doing. And I love the idea of being able to just be humble enough to go out and have a single question to start a conversation with every stakeholder on campus. I mean, I love the fact that it's like, what are we not doing and what do you wish we would do better? I mean, that's simple. That's humble. And I think that's really, really cool. And I think that the more that we can lean into that as leaders, we're going to build that relational trust, because you have to have relationships to build trust. And once you have trust, that's only when you can come back and say, actually, I don't know if we need to do it that way. That's when you start to be able to understand. I hate the word politics, but when you start to understand the politics and how things work, that you can start to really be the best that you can be for not only yourself, for your department, but your institution, because then you can start bringing your expertise to bear. Because you've invested in those relationships, you've built that trust from a base of humility. You're going to be honored, and people are going to, they're going to yield to what you think is best. And then when you prove that a couple times, then that's really when I think things start to change. And so, Kristen, it's been a wonderful conversation. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And to our audience, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Higher Ed Marketer. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with a colleague and follow us on LinkedIn at The Higher Ed Marketer. Be also sure to grab a copy of Bart's new book, Know What You Don't Know, What Every Higher Ed Leader Needs to Understand About Marketing. You can get your copy wherever books are sold. The podcast is brought to you by Kaler Solutions, your trusted partner in higher ed branding, enrollment strategy, and mission fit marketing. As always, we'll see you next week with another great guest.
The Higher Ed Marketer podcast is proud to be a part of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast Network. Discover even more conversations, resources, and tools to help you grow your institution at thehigheredmarketer.com, your go-to community for all things higher ed marketing and leadership.